I've been everything from a bath mat, I've been a cutting board, I've been a human lamp.
Welcome back to Other People's Lives. I'm Joe Santagato.
I'm Greg Dybec.
For anyone out there that wants to be a guest on our show, don't hesitate to reach out to us. You can reach us at oplpodcast@gmail.com or go to our website, oplshow.com.
Yeah, and before we get started, quick shout out to our Patreon community. If you want to help support the show and become a patron, you can head over to patreon.com/OPL show, and you get to join our Discord to speak with us and other listeners. And you can help us raise money each month through the Patreon to donate to different charities, individuals. I think we ended up being able to donate over $5,000 last year, which was really great. So we want to top that this year, give to more charities, give to more people. So if you join the Patreon, then your monthly payment will contribute to that total number that each month we're able to donate and pick a different charity. So really cool. You could head over to patreon.com/OPL show. So today we are speaking to a guest who spent 5 years in the business of being paid to be human furniture for other people. Sometimes this would involve sex, but a lot of times it would not. So we're going to learn all about the human furniture business and this guest's experiences. First off, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. So to start things off, can you describe what it means to be human furniture?
It can actually mean a lot of things. It can be as simple as just some people enjoy like sitting on you and just pretending you're a chair. It can also involve a lot of fabrics and bindings and positioning and various conversations about boundaries and things like that if things are a little bit more risque. So it ranges from the extremely, extremely mild to just sitting on the lap to everything from like knife play to things of a more dangerous nature.
So how did you even get started in something like this?
Well, it's definitely not something I was even considering. I was really young. I had just moved from the Midwest to a really large East Coast city. I was actually living with 6 other roommates at the time, so it was awful. I was barely making rent, and I went over to my landlord one day because he happened to live just across the street from us. I explained to him that I was going to be late on rent. And he kind of gave me the that maybe we can work out some sort of alternate arrangement. And I'm like, is this really happening right now? Like, this seems like a bad movie. Like, really? Like, I don't fit the profile of a typical sex worker. I'm 6'4", 400 pounds. So I'm like, I don't really think that's. But I was like, really? And he's like, just come on in and let's talk. And so he kind of explained to me what he was into, and I was like, I don't know if I'm super down for this. But he goes, well, just start off by rubbing my feet. And I was like, oh, all right, I guess that's not the worst thing in the world. And then about a few minutes into that, he asked me if I would pose for him. And I was like art or like a statue. And he goes, no, he's like, I want you to get on your hands and knees and I want to use you as a footrest. And I was like, you're kidding, right? Like, I was waiting for somebody to pop out like this to be some like horrible version of like getting punked or something. I was like, really? And so through that, it kind of started out that's how I ended up paying my rent for the next 6 months while I lived there. And then I ended up getting in touch with some friends a little bit later on down the road who were actually in the sex work industry. And they were explaining to me all the different ins and outs and things like that. And it kind of just got to be one of those things that I did for emergency funds. But then it kind of got to be something that I could make a career. I guess career is maybe a little bit overstated, but something I could work at. And yeah, so it just kind of progressed from there.
Wait, so this guy, was there no sex involved? He just wanted you to be his footrest?
Well, initially that was kind of the conversation, and I wasn't sure if I was down with that because he kind of wanted me to have sex with him. And at first I was like, I don't know. Like, I mean, I'd never had sex for money or for anything at that point other than just, having sex because I wanted to. So when I seemed apprehensive, we started with the foot rub, and then he wanted me to be his footrest, and then. Yeah, then eventually he was just like, well, how do you feel about sex? And I was like, well, I mean, to me, we've kind of crossed a more unusual threshold. So I was like, that's fine. So that's how I paid my rent for the next 6 months.
And when you're being someone's footrest, like how long are you someone's footrest? Like, are you there for like hours or something?
It depends on what you negotiate and what you work out. With him, it was only for about maybe 45 minutes, which isn't terrible. I've had like people that want to go for like 5, 6, 7 hours sometimes. And depending on what they want to do, that can be extremely taxing. So yeah, I mean, it varies, but with him, it was only about 45 minutes. So that was fine with me.
So this guy, I guess, sort of introduced you to, I guess, this world of fetish around furniture, I guess you could say. But then how did you kind of get deeper into that world? I won't spoil it. I'll let you kind of let everyone know some of the furniture that you've been requested to be. But it seems like you ended up getting pretty deep into, I don't know, specializing in being human furniture. So how did that journey start?
That kind of started because when I originally moved out to the East Coast, short of the 6 people I was living with, I didn't know anybody. Like I didn't know, I was out from the Midwest. My town was 2,000 people, and I'm now living in a town with millions of people. So I didn't know anybody. I went to a few gay bars, a few clubs, made some friends at the time, and just through communicating with them, I realized that I had made friends with sex workers, which was never a problem for me. And even at the time, after the first time it happened, I didn't really consider myself a sex worker. But through conversations with them and kind of explaining, like, what I had done and when I was comfortable talking to them, they're like, oh, yeah, there's all this other work and all these other ways you can make money doing that exact thing. And I was like, really? Like, I didn't really, like, consider it something that people did as a regular day-to-day thing, which I don't know why, because sex work is a regular day-to-day thing. But they put me in touch with some people who had some unique fetishes. They taught me a lot about how to set boundaries, how to negotiate what you will and won't do. And I've been everything from a bath mat. I've been a cutting board. I've been a human lamp. I mean, there's very little I had really hard boundaries about not doing, but it depended on what they were willing to pay, honestly, and whether I felt safe doing it.
How are you a cutting board? Like they're cutting food on top of you? Like wouldn't you get hurt doing that?
No, so that's one of those things where we have the kind of the conversation beforehand about what that looks like. I don't know if you've ever been to a dollar store and seen those really flimsy plastic cutting boards, like the little flexible ones.
Yeah.
Yeah, those. So essentially, what happened is they had. When I was a cutting board, there was an island in the middle of this person's kitchen, and I would lay on my back on the island. We would duct tape the plastic mats to me, and then they would use a wooden cutting board on top of me. So, because obviously they were using real knives.
Yeah.
And so I'm not going to say, I'm very kink positive, but I'm not going to let somebody stab me for any amount of money. So I said, this is what it's going to look like. This is how it's going to go down. And they were cool with that. And they made dinner on me, and we actually ate dinner together. And then kind of just hung out for a little bit and then went my separate ways.
So they
and what about like the lamp? Like when you're a lamp, are you like do you have to hold up a light or something?
Yeah, I've done it a couple different ways. I actually had one person who like took some vinyl and wrapped my arms, and then I had like a touch lamp that was plugged in. So they like to kind of run their fingers through the back of my hair, and then I would touch the lamp to turn it on and off. Like that was their version of the light switch. I've also had it just as simple as holding flashlights. I've also had people stick like the little pop lights, the LEDs to me that you just push to turn it on and off. So yeah, I mean, you can. It's pretty much your imagination and your comfort level is really the limit. I've seen elaborate setups. I've seen things that cost thousands of dollars, and I've seen things that cost less than $10 to do. So it's whatever you're comfortable with.
Do you know, maybe from speaking with these people, what it is about this kink in particular that some of them, like, what are some of them getting from this? Like you in the corner kind of blending in as a lamp, or them just cutting up their, dinner on a Wednesday night on top of a 400-pound person on their kitchen counter. Like, I don't know. Do you know an explanation of that kink from your experiences?
I think it comes from a couple things. Part of it comes from a control kink. And that, for some people, it's that power of the, furniture or objects or things that we own. So being able to kind of exert that control or dominance or ownership. For some people, I think it is a way just to explore different levels of creativity that they might not be able to do publicly or openly for fear of shame. And for others, I think there's just a certain element of sexual gratification and being able to give commands to somebody. And I think that's okay too. So I don't know that I ever nailed down a single specific reason, but that was kind of some of the impressions that I got from most of the people that I worked with. And
out of all these objects that you've been, like, what was your least favorite and what was your most favorite?
Least was probably the bath mat. And only because it was so essentially I had to lay down naked on a tile floor, which was already freezing cold. And then he would put this like bath mat with a vinyl backing over it. So it's just nothing but like cold tile and vinyl on me. And then he was a fairly big dude too. So he would get out and he would, basically kind of walk on my back and try to balance on my back and dry his feet off and then use another towel to dry himself off. So that was pretty uncomfortable. Favorite? Gosh. The one thing that comes to mind is I did get to do a similar version, not exactly. I don't know if you've ever seen like the shows where they have the naked sushi girls where they eat sushi off of them.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, obviously I'm not a 20-year-old, 120-pound woman, but I at the time he wanted to do something similar, and that was kind of a one-time experience that I'd never had a request for. So I basically just got to lay there and we talked and they ate dinner off of me, and it felt a little bit weird. And I was just like, okay. But I mean, yeah, it was just like a 2-hour-long conversation and it was fun.
Was this purely for the money, or did you derive any pleasure from being furniture for people?
I'll be honest and say it was mostly about the money. I don't think for me it was about sexual gratification, but being able to like help people like live out their kinks and not feel like their kinks or their fantasies were weird or abnormal. That kind of made me feel good too, because I feel like if we're all honest, we probably have one or two kinks that we don't really discuss in public, or that we don't really discuss with oftentimes even our partners, that would be nice to us for us to live out, even if only once or twice. And so I like being able to help people kind of explore that, within safety limits and things like that, because you do have to set boundaries, because otherwise some people won't. But 99% of the time it was very fulfilling work.
Interesting. And this is something I'm assuming you're still actively doing?
No, I only did it for about 5 years. I ended up moving away from the East Coast back to the Midwest, and I probably would have done it, continue to do it, except for I started getting romantically involved with people who weren't 100% down, and just the market, the volume of people here is, I mean, if it's 100% on the East Coast, it's maybe 1% of that here in the Midwest. So there's it wasn't worth the upkeep. And I mean, because I had to, use just so many different cautions and pseudonyms and things like that. And you get to a town where everybody knows you, or where everybody knows everybody else for that matter, it just wasn't worth the risk.
That makes sense. So I'm curious, in those 5 years, did you make good money? Is the money in the human furniture business good?
It depends on the person, and it depends on, I guess, the activity. I made okay money when I first started out. Like the first year I was doing it, I didn't really know. I mean, there's not really a guidebook or something that tells you what to charge for services like that. So I was literally just charging, what I needed to get by at the moment. Like if I needed like $200 for rent, it was, $200 or whatever. And then I had a friend who was a sex worker who pulled me aside and said, no, you should be charging, a lot more for this or more for this amount of time. I think the most I ever made was like $5,000 for one weekend, and that was there was a lady who wanted me to basically be like a TV tray and a table for her husband for the whole weekend, and that was the most I ever made. But I've done it for as little as $20. So I think if you have the ambition and the motivation, you know how to negotiate your worth in that way, you can definitely make lucrative money off of it.
And if you're like a TV tray for a whole weekend, like, is it the entire weekend, or is there times where it's like only when they're eating, and then what are you doing for the rest of your time?
Oh yeah. So, I mean, the rest of the time it's either, that particular weekend, I think, I'd have to remember, I think we had sex once or twice, I think. And then it's just kind of hanging out or having conversations or, what you'll find in those situations is when people have all of those barriers dropped down, when they're really that raw and exposed, when kind of most of their kinks are a big secret about them, is that the conversation actually tends to be a little bit easier. You would think it'd be a little bit more strained, but they're very open, and they talk about what their plans are and what they want to do and what their future kink goals are and stuff like that. So it was, they provided me a place to sleep. They provided everything like food and stuff and like that. They were very generous and very nice. So yeah, I mean, I didn't do overnights a lot, but yeah.
So you did mention in the email, I saw the note of the TV tray. We're not going to push you for any names or anything, but you said that a woman rented you out to be the TV tray for a very well-known celebrity.
Mm-hmm. I can't disclose who, but that was who it was for.
Were you shocked when you showed up and realized who it was, or was that part of the negotiation beforehand? Like you understanding it was a celebrity?
I didn't believe it. Yeah, I didn't believe it because it was myself and a friend, so there was actually two of us, and she had made the contact through my friend. And she's like, oh, yeah, we're going to go, do this and this and this. They're looking for somebody else this weekend. Do you want in? And I was like, I don't know. And she's like, it's $5,000. I was like, hell yeah, I'm in. And then she goes, well, it's for, such and such celebrity. I was like, no, it's not. Shut up. And I get there and they bring us inside, and I met a couple people there that they introduced us to, and they were like, these are our security staff. You'll see them like roaming around throughout the week, like, or the weekend, like, don't freak out. And then sure enough, this person walked through the door and I was like, holy crap. So I didn't really believe it at first, but it was the one and only time I had a celebrity encounter.
Wow. And you were just their TV tray for a whole weekend. Is it someone, I'm not going to bug you about this, but is it like someone super well known? Like if you were to drop the name right now, we would be shocked.
Probably, yeah. You would definitely know immediately who it was. It's not somebody like super obscure that acted in a movie like 65 years ago or something like that did like one movie. But it's we signed NDAs for that, which have long since expired. But even still, I'm just like, yeah, that's one of the weirder ones that I'm just blow my mind.
Good for you though. You're like a human safe. You're not letting the secret out. So
no, I would never. I think that's how you make people feel respected and safe. Yeah, I wouldn't do that to anybody.
And with this line of work, like, I mean, it's very interesting, and obviously you're kind of seeing people at their most vulnerable. What would you say is like the biggest takeaway that you can take away from this whole experience?
I guess for myself personally, I learned how to see people more as people and not so much as the sum of their parts. We're all weird in some ways. We're all crazy in some ways. We're all dysfunctional in some ways. And you can look at all those different pieces and make individual judgments. But I think it taught me that most people are good people. Most people are, if you set boundaries, most people respect them. If you are respectful of other people, they'll be respectful of you. It's not 100%, obviously, but, I would say 95% of the time. And I think that's a really positive thing to take away because, like I said earlier, I think if we're really, really honest, and I always tell people this is why therapy is important if you don't actually live out your kinks, is that we all have those one or two kinks that we're never going to tell anybody or that we feel like are weird or gross or freaky. And most of us are kinkier than we like to let on. And that doesn't make you weird or a freak or a pervert or anything like that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it is cool. Like you did mention before, I think something that you were able to get out of the experience is to be that person that gets to help someone live that out. And, we say it all the time on this show. A lot of people, like you said, might suppress their kinks or kind of understand that people would perceive them as super strange or abnormal. So I guess to meet strangers and to just to get in kind of a safe environment with them where they're being super vulnerable. It's just, it's special in a way. It's because it's not a place a lot of people kind of let themselves go. And then here you are being a bath mat or a TV tray or a lamp for someone and making them feel safe enough to just fully enjoy that experience. So that is nice.
Yeah, it was a great experience. Who knows if I end up back on the East Coast with my current partner, you never know what might happen, but I definitely enjoyed the experience. And I think it's something that's, I would have never, like, if you had asked me like before it happened, like, hey, do you see yourself as being human furniture for somebody one day? I'd have been like, what are you, high? Like, no, of course not. But it worked out and I don't regret it.
No, yeah, that's it's really interesting. We did not know that this existed, but it's really cool to hear about it, and it's cool to hear that you had a positive experience with it, and I guess a safe experience. And that was going to be my last question for you: is did it ever get to a place where you didn't feel safe, or was there ever an instance where you had to turn something down or walk away from a situation because it was just getting, too strange, too dangerous, or they wanted you to act, I don't know, as a piece of furniture that you just didn't feel comfortable being?
Yeah, I had some pretty hard and fast rules. that I would adhere to. And then I've had to kind of shut some people down for crossing boundaries or crossing agreed upon limits. One of them was I never did anything in public. And that wasn't just for privacy. That was because, God forbid, I didn't want, a kid to have to see that or something like that. So I had people that would pressure me to do, that was the kind of their kink, was to do all this stuff in public. And I was like, I'm sorry, that's over my line.
Mm-hmm.
I had a guy that wanted to use me as a human ironing board one time. And I was like, I asked him, I was like, how do you think that's going to work without me, getting severe burns? I was like, I'm not going to let you, put an iron to my skin. And he said, no, the iron will be off the whole time. And it's more of like a role play thing. And I said, we kind of agreed to it. And then, he started, and I felt the cold iron on my back, and then I immediately felt it start getting hot. And I jumped up, and he had plugged it in, and I was like, absolutely not. We're done.
Yeah, no way.
We're done. And then I always had a hard and fast rule that my arms could never be fully bound to where I couldn't move them at all. And that was just for my safety as well. So they couldn't be bound to my body or tied to my body in any way so that I couldn't move, because sometimes, there were people that, again, unfortunately, even though they are the minority, they didn't really respect boundaries. And so you kind of have to be able to have that presence and that confidence to stand up for yourself and be like, absolutely not, we're done.
No, yeah, that's smart. And it's cool to hear how seriously, you take your duties and role in these moments and kind of set these boundaries and rules for yourself and understanding with the other person. I think that's just super important, with sex work in general, is just that communication, at least we've learned to just be super transparent. So yeah, we really appreciate you coming on and taking the time to explain this and share some of these stories. Super eye-opening, super interesting. And it seems like something that, you'll look back on fondly, I guess, as a period of your life.
Yeah, absolutely. It was very interesting, very rewarding, and definitely in the grand scheme of life, not something I ever thought I would do in a million years, but I don't have any regrets. So
that's awesome. That usually makes for the best experiences, the ones that you don't see coming or can't imagine. So yeah, really, really cool to hear. And again, we really appreciate it.
No problem. I appreciate you guys taking the time to talk to me today.
Of course. All right. Well, have a good one.
All right. Take it easy.
Bye.
Before we get to our final thoughts, we do have some sponsors for today. We have BetterHelp. BetterHelp is online counseling, so you can get help from a therapist, and also you get matched with a therapist in just under 48 hours. So if you decide that you want to take control of your mental health and talk to a professional because you're dealing with anxiety or depression or any sort of trauma or something like that, you can start talking to someone in under 2 days. So BetterHelp is a great platform where they just match people up, and also they make it very easy to jump from therapist to therapist, because that is part of the process to find something that, or someone that fits you correctly. And it's also customized, so you can talk to people on the phone or video chat or, a live chat or something like that. So whatever makes you feel most comfortable. If you don't want to look at anyone on camera or anything like that, you don't have to. They make it very easy to communicate in various ways. So yeah, go check them out with BetterHelp. I think that it's very important for people to seek therapy. I've been in it for a couple of years now, and I think it's extremely helpful, and it's amazing. Even if there's nothing remotely actually wrong, I think it's just good, exercise for your brain. But yeah, go check them out, betterhelp.com. And it's also more affordable than in-person therapy, which can be quite expensive. So on top of it being affordable, you can also save some money because you listen to the show. You will get 10% off your first month at betterhelp.com/OPL. That is 10% off of your first month. Betterhelp.com/OPL, spelled BETTERHELP.com/OPL. So go check them out. Well, that is one of those interviews that I never thought I would do in my life.
No, never. I'm curious, what piece of furniture do you think you would be best at?
Maybe a footrest, I guess. I don't know. I feel like that may be the
That's
easiest.
hard.
I mean, I feel like being a bath mat's pretty difficult, and also being a lamp sounds like an actual like chore. Standing is not great.
I don't think you have the stamina for a footrest. That's like doing a plank almost.
That's fair. That's good. That's true. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it is an interesting thing, and it just, this is one of those episodes where I feel like it just like expands your mind to the possibilities of things that are happening out there and that people will pay for as well. Also, very interesting that he said that a well-known celebrity is indulging in such things. So it just goes to show, the whole point of the show, you never really know what people are into or what they're doing behind closed doors. And a well-known celebrity apparently is using a man as a footrest.
TV tray.
A TV tray, sorry.
TV tray. Yeah, it's also really cool. Some of the items are kind of obscure. Like, I just never would think that. I mean, I guess they make sense physically, but TV tray, bath mat, cutting board, I would never think that. I would just picture like, put your feet on me or like sit on me like a chair. But people are getting creative.
TV tray, I don't think I've ever like even seen, what is a TV tray?
Yeah, right?
I think that's
Was this like the 50s?
Yeah, like
TV
when they
tray?
would have TV dinners and they were like set up like a little easel or something.
Yeah. I think so.
The cutting board was, I thought that was going to be like they're literally cutting on top of you, but thank God there's some separation there. But yeah, it was a super interesting episode. And honestly, like the way that they were talking about it, saying that, if they needed $200 for this, it's easy to just be like, all right, I'll do like a couple hours here as a chair or, something like that. Like, I feel like that's a pretty, I don't know. Like a part of me feels like it's convenient. Like obviously it's a little strange, but it is a little convenient to be like, oh, I can make this money like doing this thing. I don't know.
Right. Because I guess they were open to sex sometimes, but it seems like there doesn't always have to be sex, or you can set the boundaries and still get enough work as human furniture without having to have sex.
Right.
So that's just like TaskRabbit or something, just come over and be my footrest for a couple hours, make a couple $100 without the worry of sex. I mean, I'm sure it's always a little scary or you're on edge going into a stranger's place, but
especially one that's kind of requesting you to be a footrest. I've actually been offered to have a footrest. There was a man some time ago that had offered to like, I will be your footrest if you want, and they were going to pay me. So a reversal of this whole thing, kind of.
Okay.
They
were going to pay you.
They were going to pay me to use them as a footrest.
Okay.
So it's like layers of submissive behavior here. There's FinDom in there, and then there's this as well. But I respectfully declined. Not something that I'm into or interested in doing, but it is very interesting nonetheless to know that people are out there, being human furniture for others.
It could, like, this could be happening in the apartment right next to me right now, or like the apartment next to you. That's what's cool. Like you said, the behind closed doors, you never know what's happening. Episodes like this, for some reason, just really make me, it changes the way I think when I like walk down the street. Like if I go for a walk later, like I'm going to be so aware, like anything could be happening up in that apartment, things we wouldn't even be able to guess.
And we live in a city, we're fortunate to live in a city where they have gigantic buildings where there's thousands of people living in them. And you're just like, what could be possibly happening? Like at least one person in there, you have to imagine.
That's the thing. The ratio alone of how many people are in New York City, knowing, a kink like this exists, I just feel like there's almost no way we haven't been walking down a street in our lifetime where someone's been human furniture in one of the places that we're passing.
In some capacity, yeah. Or have just requested that because it seems, and this is just a pure guess, but it seems like it makes more sense of it being just like a submissive act of like, I want to like demean me in a way and like I'll be your footrest. Like I'm sure there's that in abundance that people have done something similar like that, That makes a lot of sense to me. As far as it being like a exchange of goods, that feels a little more rare. And I'm basing that off of nothing, honestly, but that gut feeling that I have.
Yeah. But hey, I mean, and the person that we spoke to seemed to enjoy their time doing it. And like they said at the end, no regrets. It's kind of a period in their life that they'll look back at, something that they never expected, but it makes for a good memory. There's no regrets. They made some money, and now there's pretty interesting story to tell.
100%. And also 5 years in the game. That's a long time. Like, they definitely have memories that last a lifetime.
Yeah,
you know,
that's a career. That's a solid career in the furniture biz.
Oh yeah, I mean, yeah, you're a seasoned vet at that point. 5 years in. But yeah, for anyone out there that wants to be a guest on our show, don't hesitate to reach out to us. You can reach us at oplshow.com or just send us an email directly at oplpodcast@gmail.com.
Yeah, and head over to patreon.com/OPL show if you want to join that community, help support the show, and help us raise some money monthly to donate to different charities, different people, and follow us on Instagram at OPL Podcast. And don't forget, you can always use the code OPL at paythepricegame.com if you want to get your hands on the party game that Joe and I created. And that is all.
That is all. See you guys next time.